But this reminds me of the fellow, you've heard this, I told some of you at least this before, but this fellow was the most curious person in town. And he would just ask questions, he'd always ask questions. And one time he was sitting in the bar, or the pub, or whatever the place is, and there comes in this man with one leg, and he sits next to him. And this very curious person, of course he's curious, you know, how did you lose your leg? He wants to know. And the man with one leg knows that he is the most curious person in town. He just died to know, how did this fellow lose his leg? So he told, the man with the one leg told him, the curious fellow, he told the curious fellow, I will tell you on one condition. And he said, anything, just tell me, anything, just tell me what to do and I will do it, just tell me anything. He said, you ask only one question and you don't ask any questions after that. He said, okay, I'll do it, just tell me, how did you lose your leg? He said, it was bitten. So I'm sure that curious guy died on the spot because he couldn't ask any more questions. So I'm not going to be mysterious with you, I'm going to tell you everything gradually. But on that difficult day, when I realized that I must announce, I mean, I chickened out for 8 years now. I needed some signs, and I was shown, I had some signs, but I was shown a couple of additional signs on that day. Now I will share with you some of the signs that will assure all of us. Now the first sign, of course, is the mathematical miracle of the Quran, which is very simple. And people should have seen it in the last 1400 years. Literally thousands of scholars looked in the Quran and counted all its words, its letters, its vowels, those signs, little signs. They counted everything in the Quran. But they never came up with the mathematical composition of the Quran. Bismillah, 19 letters, the number of surahs, 19 times 6, the first revelation, 19 words, the last revelation, 19 words. All these are simple things that they should have discovered. But God reserved this for a person called Rashad, as we see in the index of the Quran, page 320, which was printed 1 year before I was born. That index, it's a comprehensive index. And on page 320, you'll see that the root word Rashada is mentioned 19 times. And this is something that came to us from Turkey. I didn't discover it. It was discovered and sent to us, as most of you know. Now, the additional things. Now I want to give you a piece of new information that shows you the awesome miracle of the Quran that was reserved until this time. The word God, Allah, in the Quran is mentioned 2,698 times. When you take every verse in the Quran where you see the word Allah, every verse from verse 1 of Surah 1, and you add the numbers of verses, the total is 118,123. 118,123. These are the numbers of verses wherever you see the word God in here. It's awesome. Because not a single verse was transplanted from its place. Not a single verse was changed. And not a single word Allah was dropped out or added in the Quran. So this is an awesome miracle that was reserved for, God knew in advance who is going to be fortunate enough or blessed with releasing this information. Now, if you add all the verses in the surahs of the 19 Rashida, and the last name also is involved. This is very embarrassing to me, but I have to tell you this and share it with you. But Khalifa is mentioned in the Quran twice. When you add all the surahs and verses, the total is 1,369, which is 19 times 77. You add all the surahs and verses where Rashada and Khalifa are mentioned. Well, I was not content with that. I'm greedy. I wanted specific Rashad Khalifa, specific Rashad Khalifa. And sure enough, if you look up, the Rashad mentioned twice. Rashad, this is the way my name is written down. It is mentioned in the Quran twice, in Surah 40, verse 29 and verse 38. The Khalifa, there are twice in the Quran. One of them is a bad one, and the other is a good one. Okay. The bad Khalifa is Satan, which is in Surah 2, and the human Khalifa, which is specifically mentioned in the Quran in reference to David, the prophet, one of our favorite prophets, the Psalms. And this Khalifa is mentioned in Surah 38, verse 26. So if you add the surah and verses connected with Rashad and the human Khalifa, the total is 171, 19 times 9. So in other words, you look at every angle and you can see that the signs are connected with the mathematical code. Now, I will explain to you in detail at another time when we have time, but this is the religion of Ibrahim. As we see in the last verse of Surah 22. Millat abikum Ibrahim. This is the religion of your father Abraham. He is the one who named you Muslims before. Muhammad brought the Quran. And yours truly was blessed with bringing the proof. I was blessed with the proof of the Quran and the secrets of the Quran. When you add Ibrahim, Muhammad, and Rashad, the geometrical values of the three names, this is all detailed here. The total is 855, which is 19 times 45. And 45 happens to be my age, 1980, when I was told for the first time. And again, I promise you, I'll explain to you how. But 45 in 1980, which is also 1400, exactly 14 centuries after Muhammad, who was told in the Quran that he will have 7 pairs. 14 centuries, among other meanings of the 7 pairs. So it is a very tight evidence, and it suits the age of a computer age. Now the secrets of the Quran, I mention this because it explains to you the revolutionary ideas that I used to come up with once in a while, or the crazy ideas, if you want to call them that, like the end of the world. It is very clear in the Quran, but it was not shown before. It's a secret in the Quran. God knew when the end of the world will be, and He put it in His final message. And we are the generation that was destined to know, to get this secret out of the Quran. Unlike the idea that drove a lot of people crazy, that anybody who dies before the age of 40 goes to heaven. How can they go to heaven when they're 35 and they're awful bad? Put them in hell. You know? We are mean. The human beings are mean. There was so much opposition to that idea. It's not even funny. And it is not coincidental that Latifa hands Carolyn hands Otis a button, this button here. Today, was it? Did she give it to you today? Yesterday? Yesterday? And he comes to me 5 minutes before before the khutbah to give me this button, which says, everything up to the age of 40 is just rehearsal. Now, I thought she made the button, but she didn't. Where did you get it?
I don't know. I was in the shop, but I don't know what shop I was in.
Oh, but you picked it up in the shop. You were shopping and you saw that.
Yeah, and I saw it and I just said,
okay, so it's not coincidence. You know, God spreads His information in many different ways and means.